Hi, everyone. I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. We are a year-round talk series bringing you the best creative voices across film, television, and theater. And today we're so thrilled to be joined by Mia Healey to talk about the new Amazon Prime series, The Wilds, which I had so much fun diving into and watched all 10 episodes in about 24 hours. It's incredibly addictive.
Oh, great.
Yeah. And to that point, I was interested, did you have all 10 scripts up front when you first kind of took on the character and took on the role, or were they still kind of coming together bit by bit as you were working on it?
No, so we were kind of as in the dark as the audiences are episode by episode, because we just got the script just before we started filming. So we were always like so excited to get the script, and it would come to our apartment and we'd like read it and find out what happened and just get so excited about it. And I kind of liked it that way because, it just made you so excited about reading it and getting involved. And just, character stuff as well, like being excited to see what happens.
Yeah. Well, the reason that I was really curious about that for you in particular was that each of the episodes kind of gives us a lot of backstory on before they come to this island that they're deserted and stranded on for each of the young girls. And with yours, it comes a little bit further on in the season, once we've already kind of seen her on the island a lot. And so were you kind of working with the creative team and getting a lot of that information and back detail, because we really learn a lot more about her family, kind of the town that she grew up in and what that environment was like for her?
I always had an idea of the character arc of Shelby. I had a rough idea of where she was going to go, and I kind of, just put that in the back of my mind and remembered that for when I was doing the episodes leading up to her backstory, finding out more about her backstory. But I didn't know specifically what was going to happen in that episode, and the little details that was going to happen for her in episode 8. So by the time I read that script, I was like, oh, it just felt like such a release to be able to like just explore that and just like feel way more settled in the character, now knowing like everything that she'd kind of been through.
Yeah. Beyond the details that they'd been able to give you and share with you, kind of what's your kind of deconstruction of a script process and development of backstory that you find to be the most useful and the most valuable for yourself?
I think for me, every time I get a script, I just try to find the moments in which I relate to this character, and I try to look at the character and break down, okay, why do I empathize with this person? How do I empathize with this person? How is she like me or not like me? And I just try and start from that sort of space. And then when it comes to the script, I just go like scene by like line by line and kind of just see where her mind's going and create a natural sort of flow, like how art, like when I'm not acting, like how when I'm talking, the natural flow of like my speech and the thoughts that come to my head, and just trying to like make it as natural as possible so that I'm not stuck in like just reading lines off a page sort of thing. Yeah.
And this was your first kind of series and professional on-screen job coming out of drama school, where you studied at NIDA, was it?
Snyder, yeah.
I wasn't sure how you break down the acronym over there. I know all the ones in the UK and the States.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you a little bit about your time studying there and what the really valuable tools were kind of going into this job and being on set and inhabiting this character that you suddenly found to be things that were really, really useful parts of your skill set that you'd gotten the chance to develop in your time there.
Mm-hmm. Well, during high school, I was doing a lot of theater, and I always thought that that's something that I would be way more involved in than I am now. I always thought, I really wanted to be in theater. I wanted to do musical theater or just, do a play at STC or something like that. And then I went to Snyder, and I worked with the screen coach that we had. His name was Les Chantry, and he kind of changed my life in the way that he showed me what it would have been like to be in a TV show or a movie, and doing a lot of self-tapes. And I think for me, it was more of a personal development thing that I've really brought through into my work now. Getting rid of my ego, I think, was a huge thing. I think when I was at Snyder, and what Les really taught me was to just kind of like break me down and then build me back up with less of an ego. Not that I had a huge ego or anything, but and I find that I really need that when I'm on set, because you have to do so many things that feel kind of humiliating when you're, improvising, or you have to go really big on a scene and you can't see your scene partner or whatever it is. And you have to just be, you just got to go hard and be embarrassed and enjoy being embarrassed and appreciate that feeling. I think that's what I've taken from my training the most into the work. Also things like doing as ifs, trying to, technical things, putting myself in the character's shoes, and empathy, a lot of empathy for sure.
And with this being your first television series and kind of huge production that you were on, kind of where would you look for answers when you were a little bit unsure about things, and what were the biggest learning curves and biggest challenges in stepping into that world for the first time?
The entire thing was a learning curve. The entire thing was so unknown to me. I was just, from the beginning, just so excited and grateful to be there and to be given this opportunity. And I wasn't at all ever really afraid. I think the challenges that I kind of faced towards the end, especially towards episode 8, and during episode 8, were kind of finding a way to anchor myself. And I didn't really know, because I'd never done anything before and hadn't done, a character that has this much sort of grit to her before. I was struggling to find a way to anchor myself and bring Mia back home with me and leave Shelby on set, and kind of find a way to balance my life as Mia and playing this character every day for 6 months. And that was a challenge, but I was lucky to be around, all the cast members, all the other women were so supportive, and we all were really, really close. So I was able to turn to them if I ever had any questions, or I would just ask people. And because it was a series and we had so many different directors, I just learned so much, and you just ask a lot of questions and just hope for the best.
Yeah. And your character Shelby is from kind of a small town in Texas, which is obviously a very specific dialect. And so I wanted to ask you about the dialect work that you did, because it's really, really well done, and really authentic. My mom's actually from San Antonio, even though it doesn't sound like it. But also, as an Australian actor, with ambitions of coming over to the States, I know that you were set to move to LA right when COVID hit in. Is it something where you've always had that consciousness at the back of your mind as well, of like, I'm going to need to be able to master dialects in order to have that career and the trajectory that I want over in the States as well?
Yeah, I think that's a thing for every Australian actor who wants to go to the States, always has in the back of their mind or front of their mind, like, I need to get this accent down, because it's really important to be able to do it, especially when you're doing American work. I auditioned for Shelby in just standard American accent, and I didn't do much dialect work at Snyder. That was kind of something that I did just in my own time. I felt like I had a natural sort of knack for accents initially, which helped me a lot. I did go and see a dialect coach once or twice while I was in Sydney before filming. But yeah, then when we were on set, we had a dialect coach there that was there to, like, if there was one little word that was just, we weren't hitting right, would come in and just help us out. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also so many details that you managed to pull into the character, and details that are in the script that are so specific to the idea of, like, coming from a town in Texas as well. Were there kind of spaces that you looked into and researched to really understand that side and what the specifics of that would look like for her?
Yeah, I tried to do as much sort of research into Texas, especially for the accent, because I wasn't sure. I didn't know I was going to be doing a Texan accent until we started filming the pilot. They were like, "Oh, can we do Texan?" And I was like, "Oh my God," I thought it was going to be so hard. I feel like it's actually easier though with the Australian accent to, like, sit in a Texan accent for some reason. Sorry, what was your question?
Like the specifics of kind of like what that would look like with her coming from a town in Texas, and what that community would be like for her as well.
So I watched Friday Night Lights over and over, and I don't know if you've seen it, but I love that show. And the writer, Sarah Stryker, recommended it to me when we started and was like, you should watch this show. It's really, like, authentic, Texan sort of lifestyle, and just for the accent as well. So I watched that a lot. I tried to do as much research into the pageant world as well to get an idea of it. I grew up in a small town in rural New South Wales as well, so I kind of drew on that a little bit, and it's totally different, but I definitely could relate to her, that sense of kind of that not closed-minded, but just, that small town energy, I could sort of relate to. So I pulled from that as well.
Yeah. And beyond moments like that and details that Sarah Stryker, who created and wrote the show, was able to give you, did you have much of an opportunity to have more conversations with her? And were there details about your character that you really felt like she gave you and helped you understand further?
Yeah, Sarah Stryker is incredible. And one of the greatest things about working on the series is her and Amy Harris both gave all of us so much creative freedom to come to them with ideas, or to, they put us in this space where we were comfortable enough to be like, to just explore the character for ourselves and build them together. And we'd have meetings as a group with Sarah, and she would ask questions like, where do you see your character going for the rest of the season, or stuff like that. And she would always try and answer as many questions as possible, was there all the time on set. And yeah, it was super, super helpful and informative.
Yeah. And because you were just mentioning, kind of looking into pageantry as well. And that's a big part of your character's backstory and something that she's very involved in. And in episode 8, we get the opportunity to kind of see her within that space. And I wanted to ask you about the song performance in that, because there's a moment within that episode where she's going through, a really kind of emotional, crucial moment for herself as a character. And you portray it so beautifully through that performance. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit about, not just constructing that song as a performance, but also really bringing so much of your character into that moment.
Yeah, it helped being in the costume a lot, like getting into that space and there being an actual audience in front, and I guess just having to, put myself in her shoes. And that's where those as if sort of come in. I didn't go through the same experience that she had, but it's as if something else in my life had happened that has happened to me, or something like that I can kind of pull from. And just being as open to the emotions as possible. I feel like as soon as I get restricted or closed off about, or too in my head about where the emotion needs to be in the scene, like when it comes to scenes like that, I just need to let it go and just hope and just feel the emotions and let them run through me, and hope that when I get there and I'm on my mark, then it happens. And sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. And then also, you were filming in New Zealand in like these beautiful lush landscape spaces when these girls are all trapped on the island. And so I wanted to ask a little bit about like the on location filming. And I imagine that was such a useful element to just literally be in that setting. And, I saw a behind the scenes picture that you posted online where it's like, you see the camera crew and then there's just nothing in the distance at all as far as the eye can see.
Yeah, I think there were times when we were like, oh, this is, we were finding it really hard because of the wind and the sand, and you had to be talking with your eyes open, but sand would be coming in your eyes, and you'd be like, oh, this is so just uncomfortable and frustrating. But it really helped because it made us, we were able to stop acting because we were genuinely on this island. We were genuinely, climbing those cliffs and running into that ocean, and it was all real. So it helped a lot because we didn't have to act as much. We were kind of just like actually suffering in real life, which helped.
Did you have much of an opportunity to spend time on location in that space and in that landscape before you started filming? Or were there things that you did that you felt were useful in terms of just understanding what they would be going through in the day by day? Or was it less necessary because as characters, they're all going through this situation for the first time themselves?
We didn't spend much time there before we started filming. It was like really far out from where our hotels were and everything. But once it definitely, it was good for the camaraderie of the group to all be doing it for the first time together. And I think it's good that we didn't all like go beforehand, or some people did and some people didn't, because we were all experiencing everything together for the first time. None of us had done anything like that before in our lives. So it was like we all really needed each other and we all really understood each other. And I think as actors, it was the exact same as actors, and it's the same as the characters. They all were in that situation together, and it was, exactly the same on and off screen.
Yeah. And was it kind of a really unique experience for you and the rest of the cast in terms of just filming with such an intimately sized cast, because it is just these girls on the island, there's no other characters that you're interacting with. So I imagine it was a really wonderful opportunity for you to bond and really kind of learn each other's working styles and develop a lot of trust and bond as scene partners.
Yeah, we really bonded, and we all have really great moments with each other. Our characters have really great moments with each other. And yeah, you do learn about other people's working methods and how they work. And there are some people like that you work really well with, so you're like, okay, we're going to the scene, and how they work and they know how you work, so you like do it together if it's physical or mental or whatever you guys need to do to get the most out of the scene. I think it's great that it was just us 8 girls, because it made us bond so well. And we'd always come over to each other's houses and like go out for dinners and go to concerts and all that stuff. But then it was also exciting when we went into each other's backstories, and there'd be, guest roles would come through and someone would fly in and be at the hotel, and we'd all be like so excited to like meet new people and like have them over for a drink or whatever. It was nice.
Really was like someone was coming to the island to rescue you all.
Literally, it felt like that. We were like, hi. They were like, whoa, you guys are really intense.
As you kind of got the scripts a little bit further into the season one by one, you know, and obviously we were talking about how, you know, episode 8 is really kind of your character's central backstory, and each of the other ones all have an episode as well. Did you find yourself also really diving into the details of their character and looking at their backstories as something that's really useful, just in terms of understanding their character motivations and where they're coming from when you're interacting in scenes together on the island?
It definitely helped understand the character a lot more. It might, I don't know, it might have been easier to not know about that backstory because us as the characters shouldn't really know that backstory because it's supposed to be a secret. But I think it allowed all of us to really understand each other a lot more. And it was, yeah, I appreciated that. I really loved reading the scripts and, you know, hearing about all the other characters' backstories. And it made me so excited and just fall in love with the show from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also so wildly impressive that every single one of you is actually in almost every single scene in the show, because they are kind of trapped in this space, you know, and there's moments where we see them breaking away in pairs and exploring, but there's a multitude of scenes where we're really just capturing them all together as a group. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit specifically about filming those scenes and what that was like, you know, even when your character's a little bit further in the background or only has a moment, but how you still kind of work to make sure that you're constructing your character and bringing forward more details about her each of those moments.
Yeah, I guess when it does come to those, you know, big group settings, you just got to remember who your character is and just live in, you know, that body and breathe life into it, and just make sure that, you know, the choices that you're making are natural and the kind of choices that, you know, your character would be making. And yeah, I love doing the group scenes because you get to see everyone together, and because we were all such good friends, it was nice when we got to all be on set together at the same time and go home at the same time together. But it's good. It was good. It was really good.
Yeah. It's also so interesting watching these characters make choices and make decisions, because they're put in such an extraordinary circumstance, even from the very first few minutes of the pilot, you know, right after we meet them, the plane's going down and we see how they each respond in wildly different ways. And so I wanted to ask about, you know, how you continue to think about the way that Shelby would respond to all these situations, because, you know, she's not experiencing anything at any point in the series that she's gone through before at any moment. And it's such an extraordinary circumstance.
I think, you know, when the plane starts going down and Shelby comes out and starts praying to God, I think, you know, she does that. That's her response to, I think, everything. I think that's her comfort zone. That's where she feels safe, is when she's, you know, in church or, you know, being religious. I think that's her response, and that's what she does in that whole fight or flight thing. If we're crashing and dying, that's what she's going to do. And she does that throughout the island. In all the other episodes, she's constantly kind of reconnecting to her God.
Mm-hmm. It also feels like, to a degree, she's kind of got one of the most useful defense mechanisms, in that she's always forging herself in positivity. She's the first person to try and, you know, bring everyone together, have everybody get to know each other, because they're all coming into this situation as strangers pretty much as well. And so I wanted to ask about how you kind of like really constructed that in such a beautiful way, where she's always kind of at the center, pulling all the rest of the characters in together with her.
Well, it was fun. It was funny because, you know, she was always doing that, and all the other characters were kind of like, oh my God, like, can this chick stop? Which kind of spurred me on, and I kind of liked. But I enjoyed being that person. I feel like I am kind of that person, you know, in my real life, trying to like bring everyone together and, you know, be optimistic and stay positive. Not as much as her. I feel like if I was on an island and I just survived a plane crash, I wouldn't be like, let's play an icebreaker. Do you know what I'm saying? But I love doing that because the setting that we were in was so difficult, and it was a really challenging time being on that island. It was fun to be able to play a character that was finding the fun in it, and it made it a lot more fun for me.
Yeah. And within that, you know, the trajectory that she goes on, we do eventually see her reach her breaking point, and it's fairly extreme. And by the time that she gets there, it feels really, really justified. And so I wanted to ask you about kind of the unique challenges of throughout the whole series and all of the episodes leading up to that point, just really kind of gradually arcing that out and shifting how she's responding to all of these situations and who she's becoming in this space.
I think because I always knew what the reason was that Shelby was kind of doing these things and behaving the way that she does, made it a bit easier for me to, defend her and, play the truth in those scenes, because I knew why she was doing it and I empathized with that. It became very, like, she became very anxious, I feel, Shelby, towards episode 8, because of everything that was going on and the behavior and the people, how she made people feel on the island. And then by episode 8, being able to explore her backstory and being able to kind of explain and put to bed a lot of the things that were kind of unanswered about her from, episodes 1 to 7, was such a release for me as an actor, to playing this character who I'm so emotionally connected to. It was very relieving to be able to just justify all of her behavior.
Mm-hmm. It also feels like out of all the girls that she's the one who still kind of remains the most connected and tied to home, even though they're in this space where they don't necessarily need to think about that, and that her parents are really this strong presence even when they're not physically there. So I wanted to ask you a little bit as well about, that side of her and the parental relationship and constructing that and really making it that continued presence for her as a character.
Yeah, I think, in Shelby's household, she's grown up in a very, religious Christian household, where, respect is really important, and, duty is really important, and doing the right thing and being the person that, she needs to be is a massive part of her upbringing. And that's really stuck with her, because I think she's made a lot of decisions in her life before this plane crash, based on that. And I think you see when she's on the island that slowly, her starting to think for herself, which she has never really done before, because she's just been constantly being, doing what she needs to do and being the perfect daughter for her parents. And yeah, you see her slowly sort of let go of those sort of, shackles.
Yeah. And from all of the moments in filming the show and all of the scenes that you pulled together, is there a particular one that to you personally was the most challenging one, either just in terms of the circumstances or the spaces that you had to go in terms of your performance?
I think the most challenging, I think there was a scene in episode, I think it was 7, where me and Sarah Pigeon, who plays Leah, are getting into an argument where she thinks Shelby's up to something, and I don't know how much I can divulge on here, but and that sort of fight that they get into, and it becomes quite physical, and there's a lot of work with the flipper, because from the first episode you realize that Shelby's got a flipper, so that was quite challenging, just the physicality of it and being on the stand in the heat and doing all the things, and the scene being very emotionally extreme and tense. But it was never challenging in a bad way. It was the most challenging scene, but also my favorite scene, because I love those moments of being challenged, and that's kind of why I love to do this, is for those moments. So I get really excited about it, and when it's not working, it spurs me on a little bit. I get a bit excited to just make it work, and yeah, I like being a bit hard on myself sometimes.
And are there particular things that you feel like you've really added to your skill set as an actor from working on this series, that you kind of can already see that the next time you're working on a project, or whether it's a film or a series or theater, that's going to be something that you continue to think about and kind of bring into your toolkit?
I definitely think after playing a character like Shelby, who has just so much going on that is unspoken, forced me as an actor to play those things without them being actually said or, seen in the script or on screen. So I think what I'm going to take from this show is, being able to play those nuanced things and those details in this character's life that aren't actually written in the script or aren't really there, that no one's really talking about, and just making that, breathing life into, words on a page. I think Shelby's really taught me that, because I had to, because it was so much of her life was, a secret up until, episode 8. So that's one of the greatest things about playing her, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see what you end up diving into next, character-wise. And thank you so much for talking about the show so in depth with us this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me.